Hi, third graders. We're starting a new chapter, chapter 10 today. Before we move on to that, let's look at a little bit that we studied in chapter 9 with our fraction chapter. Remember, we learned what a fraction represented. This 1 represents our numerator, or number of pieces that we have, and the 3 is our denominator, the number of pieces something is divided into. So if we have a whole circle, the 3 says that is the number of pieces we divide our circle into. The numerator, the 1, says that's the number of pieces that we have here available. And so in that same chapter, we looked at comparing our fractions. I'm sorry we can't get it focused today. It just won't stay put. What if we had the fraction 2/6? If we draw a circle and we divide it into 6 pieces, and we have 6 of these, 2 of them, it says our numerator is 2, it's going to be exactly the same amount that we have as 1/3. Remember that the smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece, because the denominator shows what size of piece we have. So 6, this is a much smaller piece than 3, because the 3 represents that we only divided our cookie or our pie or whatever in 3 pieces. And the 6 says we divide it into 6 pieces, so the pieces are smaller. Well, our new chapter is time. Please go to your big book, page 389. Big book 389. I know you studied time a lot in 2nd grade. Some of you even got new watches to learn to tell time. This particular clock has some little drawings around it, which is going to help us tell what the time says. Our word problem says Groundhog Day is February 2. People say that if a groundhog can see its shadow on that morning, that winter will last another 6 weeks. The clock shows the time when the groundhog saw its shadow. So we need to look at this clock and figure out what the hour hand tells us on the clock. You remember that the hours are the numbers that we see on the clock, and that the clock has just 12 numbers, and then it starts over as the hands move around. You also remember the hands go around the clock 2 times every day. There's a 12 o'clock when we eat lunch, and there's a 12 o'clock in the middle of the night when we're asleep. The hours are represented by these numbers. So when we want to know what the hour hand tells us, we have to know which one is the hour hand. You guys think about it. Do you remember which one is the hour hand? It's the shorter one, isn't it? Sometimes it's fatter on some clocks. This one it's always shorter, and this one is our hour hand. So we know that it's right here, pointing this direction, right here on our clock. That's between the 7 and 8. Has it gotten to the 8 yet? It hasn't, has it? But it has passed the 7, so our hour hand tells us that it is 7 o'clock. But it's not exactly at 7. We can see that hour hand's not right at the 7. We want to know what the minute hand tells, because the minutes have passed since it turned 7. To do that, we can start at the top, right up here at the 12. That's where we have no minutes, 0 minutes in a new hour. And then each one of these little marks is a minute. So between the 12 and the 1, there's 5 little marks, or 5 minutes. Between every number, there's 5 minutes. We can count by 5s, or remember your multiplication 5s, as we count what the minute hand, has done. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 minutes. So the minute hand tells us it's 35. We can write that by saying it is 7:35. We can say it in 2 ways. We can say 7:35, or we could say 35 minutes after 7, and it's going to mean the same thing, whichever order we put it into. Let's look at this next clock. because when we look at a clock, we always want to do the hour first. Notice they asked about the hour first. We want to look at the hour hand, and here our hour hand, remember it's always a short one. It's after the 1 but before the 2. Hasn't gotten to the 2 yet, so it's 1. And the minute hand, we count starting at the 12. That's no minutes into the hour, so we start there. 5, 10, 15, 20. And then look at this. This minute hand hasn't gotten all the way to the 5 yet, so we have to count each little individual minute. This little space here is 1 minute, so we have 21, 22, 23. So our minute hand tells us it's been 23 minutes past 1. We write that 1:23. We can say 23 minutes after 1, or remember we can turn it around and say it the other way, 1:23, and it's going to mean exactly the same thing whichever order we put it into. But we might want to look at a clock and say, well, it's almost a new hour here. There's not very many minutes before this hour hand gets to the 3. So we might want to say this one a different way. But let's check it out. The hour hand always first. It's after the 2, before the 3. So our hour hand is 2. This time we want to measure the minutes coming before the hour. So let's go backwards. We've always been going to the right. This time we're going to back up to the left. We're going to count how many minutes before it gets to 3. So we have 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. So it's 17 minutes, but remember we were counting backwards. So it's 17 minutes before 3. Now, we didn't do this part, but that's the same, 2:43. These two times are exactly the same thing. We can either count the minutes before and say it's before, or we can count the minutes after and say it's after, like we did in this problem. All right, let's look at our practice. Number 2, we're writing the time, and then away we can read the time. Always check our hour hand first. This is after the 2 and before the 3. So it's 2. And then we're counting our minute hand. We start at the 12. Let's see if we can get it focused here for you. Oh, sorry, it's going to make you seasick, isn't it? There we go. Maybe that'll stay. We start at the 12. We count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. And look at that. It goes one more minute past the 55, so it's 56. 2:56. Well, we could read the time as 56 minutes after 2. So we're going to abbreviate minutes there, after 2. What's another way we could put? Well, we could say 2:56. That's another way. Or we could have counted backwards, and we have just 4 little minutes here. We could have said 4 minutes. This 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 minutes before 3, because it's almost a 3. So we have 3 different ways we could read it. Number 3, see if you can try it out, and then we'll check it together. Always check the hour hand first, then the minutes, all right, our hour hand, and if you needed more time, you can pause the video. Our hour hand is after the 6 and before the 7. The hour hand is always the short one, so it's 6. Our minutes start with 0. There's 5, 10, 15, and then 2 more little spaces after the number 16, 17. So it's 6:17. We can read it literally 6:17, or we could turn around and say 17 minutes, and we're going to abbreviate that again, after 6. We're going to have to stop the video there because of time. But if you have checked on to Khan Academy, you should be able to find a unit there about time that might be able to help you if you're having trouble, or get out a watch or a clock and practice. Your assignment today is 10.1, and your problems are going to look a lot like this, where you write the time and then a way that you could read the time. That's where you'll write it in words. Have fun!